All right, here we go. Welcome back to a new episode of Survive the Hunt. I'm your co-host, Billy Hoffman. On the line, I got my best buddy in the outdoors, the true professional survival expert, Jacob Hacker. What's going on tonight, brother?
How's it going, Billy? Am I not your best friend in the world? Is it just the industry? I thought I was higher ranked than that.
Whatever you need to tell yourself to make you feel better, I'm good with.
I feel fine with how you said it, so we'll just go. We'll go with that. Man, I feel like it's been forever since we talked, man.
You know, we can't let people, see behind the curtain and let them know that we don't just get together constantly and record these, back to back or whatnot. But yeah, we did record a huge batch of them, and unfortunately we were actually supposed to hang out this weekend, but fate played a role in that. And we didn't get to hang out. So here we are back recording these mobilely, but anytime I get to spend with you on the screen is a good time.
That's very nice of you, buddy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Well, real quick though, let's just tell people the quick story about what happened this weekend. Go ahead with your version.
You backed out on me. You said you had better stuff to do. So I was supposed to go up to the great state of Michigan, not as great as Ohio, but still a good state. I was supposed to go up, hang out with Billy, record a few episodes. We were going to do our overnight $100 survival kit challenge while we were there. And then Billy had to go trying to be a lumberjack and cut down a tree, and it fell on his cabin. So he told me I couldn't come up and play. So is that pretty accurate?
Pretty accurate, yeah. Except for I didn't drop a tree on it, but our roof was on the hunting cabin was already pretty bad.
Yeah.
The last time it had been put on was we figured out it was 96 or 97, right?
Oh, wow.
And our cabin is literally just a 2-car garage that's been converted into a cabin, kind of like a pole barn style, So it didn't have like the highest quality shingles and flashing and tarp. There was no tarp paper at all, actually.
Oh, wow.
Even so, it was time, right? So what we ended up doing is we just ended up throwing a steel roof on it, one of those metal roofs, and that way we didn't have to put down any new tarp paper. We didn't even have to tear stuff off. We basically went up, scrubbed it off, took a leaf blower and blew the mold and the moss that was growing on it off, and then just screwed the roof down. And honestly, with that steel roof, it should be good, unless a bigger tree falls on it, into where we're gonna have to like build a whole new cabin.
Yeah.
We call our hunting camp Lucky Trail, and it's no reason behind that other than that's the name of the road that it's on. Unless we have to build something completely new at Lucky Trail, we should be good for the future. But yeah, Jake was supposed to come up. We were going to stay outside, do our survival challenge for the weekend, and had to cancel on him. See, the thing is, guys, we live like 6 hours apart, so it's not like we can just run over and do something super quick. 6 hours isn't too far. We get to see each other probably about once a year, but still, yeah, I was really looking forward to it, and I was super bummed. And just stuff happens, man.
Yep. No, I can't do anything about that. Your cabin's up in the UP, right?
No, it's not actually not all the way to the UP. So
Okay.
I'm in Southeast Michigan. Lucky Trail is just a little bit north of what's called West Branch, Michigan.
Do the hand thing. Show me on the hand where it's at.
Okay, so here's Michigan. West Branch is right about there.
Okay.
So it's basically right in the dead middle of the state. Hold on, right there, right in the dead middle of the state of up north. So dead middle of up what we consider up north. So
okay.
So it's still 2 hours from the UP, and probably a solid 3 hours from the Ohio border. So but from my house it's in like an hour and 35 minutes.
That's nice. Yeah.
And you can quickly get there. And the cool thing is it's completely different terrain. Like you cross this like terrain boundary. So hunting there is 100% different than it is hunting like near my house. So I really get to when I'm up there, I really get to experience both aspects. It's not unlike your state where like, especially northwestern Ohio, you're going to be doing crops and ag fields and it's all flat. then you get down there east of Cincinnati or even down farther along the Kentucky border. And man, you would not believe they're straight up mountains that Ohio has. People don't realize that.
Yep.
Yeah. People do not realize that. So, it's cool that we both live in states that give us that type of perspective where, you can really get out of your element and challenge yourself as a hunter.
Yeah.
For me, it's agricultural down, where I live. I live in the agricultural area. It's kind of suburban hunting, if you will.
Sure.
But up there, it's all just, there's no ag. It's just all hardwoods. You better find a white oak acorn or you ain't ever going to see a deer.
So did you get to do any scouting or anything while you're up there, or any cameras or anything like that?
Yeah, actually I did. Luckily enough, my brother-in-law showed up and they're all like construction guys. So the joke is I always supervise, but, but it's like Billy pays the bills and supervises, but, so, them being construction guys, they're just quicker with everything, quicker switching drill bits in their drill, quicker, just stuff that they do repetitively, and,
sure.
So we got it done. We got it done in pretty much a day, and then a little bit more the following morning. So, which did actually leave me not plenty of time to go scouting, but I spent about 7 hours.
Oh wow!
In the woods. I put the Onyx tracker on. I did about 4.5 miles just to.
Nice.
I checked some spots that I know that I've hunted a couple times over years, but there's always been it's all public land, right? So there's I can't remember, it's 9,000 acres of public land. Within walking, well, not within walking distance, but right outside the cabin. So our cabin's actually only on 1 acre. The rest of it is all just public. So there's just all these areas that I've always I want to get over there and walk over there. I want to get over there and walk over there. And we've ridden our quads a lot through them, but I've always been okay, so what's over this ridge? What's there? And, I found an absolute beautiful dynamite of a duck hunting hole, man.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Did I find this beautiful flooded timber swamp? It felt and looked like Arkansas. It was like a duck hunter's dream. And what was really cool is I didn't see any ducks on the water there, right. But I did see there was a great horned owl out in the middle of the flood, cool. just sitting there. It's 1:00 in the afternoon. He's just sitting there looking at me, it was pretty cool to see that. And they're just big birds, and there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them up there, but didn't see any eagles this weekend, but did find a couple of spots. I have. What do I got now? I think I got 5 cameras basically up in my hunt spots around the cabin. I hung 2 new ones this weekend, and I've already received buck pictures on both of them. So
that's awesome.
And these were spots.
Yeah.
It really does. These are spots I picked out on Onyx. I've learned a lot by watching the Hunting Public guys, or also Jason Samkoviak from the Traditional Bow Hunting and Wilderness podcast. He sells a course. A deer hunting course, and I bought his course, and in that course there's a lot of stuff covered on digital scouting and techniques and stuff, and just I put a lot of that to use. I've done my due diligence to learn how to digitally scout, but I haven't necessarily gone and put boots on the ground to see if I'm full of crap or not. And I tell you what, not every spot that I digitally scouted paid off, right?
Yeah.
But the ones that did, I'm going to kill a deer there.
Yeah.
And probably, and obviously it's August. So those patterns are going to change. All the buck pictures I saw, they were bachelor groups. Those bucks aren't all going to be together.
Yeah. You guys don't start till October up there, do you?
Well, this year you can start second week of September.
Really?
Yeah, because they got all the specialty hunts and whatnot.
Oh, so, that's right. Yeah, they did a bunch of goofy stuff this year.
They did a bunch of goofy stuff this year. But that being said, most of those hunts are southern Michigan and private land, so it doesn't really come into play up there. But generally, I actually won't be up at the cabin until the second week of October. So I usually get there right about the October lull. Sometimes it depends on the schedule at work and what's going on with fall football and whatnot. But anyways, I found you can look at my Onyx and I was like, oh, there's a tree line there. There's a bunch of thick stuff here, which I knew was a clear cut about 6 years ago. I said, that's all going to be poplar. That's going to be super thick, and that's going to be bedding. And then there's another big tree line. I didn't know what those tree lines were. The far one ended up being spruce, and the close one ended up being white and red acorns, or white and red oak trees. So, and then on the back side of that was a swamp. So I was like, if they're going to go from bedding to food to water, they're going to have to walk down this edge. And by God, there was a run there. And there was acorn tops there, and there was loaded acorn trees. They haven't even dropped yet, of course.
Yeah.
But so I was like, I'm just gonna throw a camera up here, and I had a Spy Point Solar, the one that's got the solar panel on it.
Right.
Really like that camera because you never have to worry about batteries. So I threw that up there, and I slapped one of their cell links on it to basically turn that solar powered camera into a cell camera. And it's already started paying off, man. It's like, boom.
That's awesome.
I got buck pictures. I haven't picked out an exact tree there.
Yeah.
I think my plan is to be like super mobile in regards to that. And then just get there either the morning of or an afternoon of and kind of look, see if the run is still super. I'll know if the run's active because of my camera, but see, basically there's plenty of trees in that area for any wind. So that's
nice.
kind of my idea that unless it's blowing directly south and going, which would be from the swamp through the oaks into that bedding, that would be a no-go. But I could always go on that pine side, but I don't think they would necessarily hit the pine because they're going to be coming to food on the other side. But anyway, I got plenty of spots. So
that's awesome.
It was kind of, I know I'm rambling here, but it was kind of nice with getting the cell camera pictures and whatnot. It was kind of it was nice to get vindication by looking at a computer screen and then going there on foot and saying, yes, this is a spot that holds deer. There are deer here. I could tell that from the sign. So that was cool. And then it was nice to get vindication, not even 2 days later, sent to my cell phone to say, not only are there deer here, there's a lot of deer here. They're using this, and they happen to be shooter bucks. Cool thing is, $2 on camera, and I'd take both of them. So
that's great. That's good, man.
So it was a good weekend.
That's awesome. Those cellular cameras make such a huge difference especially when you got to travel to a spot like that and then wait a few days. It might be a month before you get to go back up there. And if the camera's in the wrong spot, maybe you can get up there sooner and change them. If you're in the right spot, it's nice to be able to sit back and just watch what's going on.
Yeah, so now I have a couple other spots where I have cameras set up. I'm just hoping to get a bear on there. Not that I'm bear hunting up there this year, but
right.
I think it'd be really cool to get a bear on camera. So in this particular camp is, my brother-in-laws are up there. It's technically my father-in-law's place. It's already been deeded to us through when he's gone and everything. So it's going to be in the family for years and years and years. But we know they're bear in the area. No one's seen one yet. We've seen tracks and scat and stuff in the yard. So I really want to get one of those bear pictures just to say, see, I told you they weren't far. So that'll be cool. So that's my next goal right there is to kill a nice buck. Cause I haven't killed a nice buck at Lucky Trail yet.
Okay.
But it's northern Michigan state land hunting. So nice bucks are few and far between. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, sure.
But my next goal is to get a bear on camera there, and hopefully if we can get a bear on camera, and I'm about 2 years away from being able to hunt that unit.
That's so awesome. You've been saving up for that one for a while.
Yeah, we're 6 years into it now.
Yeah.
So that's the Gladwin unit. It's the second most popular unit in the state of Michigan. Honestly, not because it's the best bear hunting, it's because it's the farthest south where the bears range.
Gotcha.
So it's like the people from downstate that's the closest one where they can easily run up and bait it and do everything they need to do. So,
all right.
Well, we are 15 minutes into this dang show, and we haven't even told people what we're going to talk about today.
What are we going to talk about today, Billy?
Well, if they can read at all, they're going to already see the topic of the thing, but we haven't talking about what are you doing the finger thing? Is that?
I was saying that's where they would look to see what the title is. They would look up.
Oh, I thought you were okay.
No, so that's where it would be. It would be right up there. Actually, it might be down
right up there.
It'll be somewhere on the screen.
It'll be somewhere on the screen. But what was funny about Jake doing that is when his finger went across, it went across directly level with his hat, and his hat says hunt something. So I thought he was like telling me like,
Oh,
don't forget to mention my hat. I don't know, but his hat says hunt, so whatever.
it says Hunt
But
Vault. Hunt Vault.
oh,
Go
Hunt
check
Vault.
them
We
out.
like Hunt Vault.
I know you
Yeah.
like Hunt Vault. Billy won a free Hunt Vault at the Badlands Film Festival this year.
Yeah, which was great. I'm obviously a big fan of Badlands. Got some right there.
I like it.
But Badlands has a film festival every year, and my name got pulled out for a raffle, and I won a Hunt Vault package. So yeah, check out Hunt Vault. Pretty cool stuff.
Pretty awesome. Anyway, so what we're talking about today is hunting myths. So Billy and I have both brought to the table some of our favorite or least favorite hunting myths, depending on how you're looking at them. And Billy's going to wet his whistle, and then he's going to start us off here.
All right. So I think with my first myth, it's a pretty simple one. However, it's one of those things where I don't think anyone who pays any attention to hunting related media or reads articles or anything actually believes this myth anymore. However, I grew up believing this myth. So I think if you ask some of the old timers, or you ask people who don't necessarily educate themselves about deer biology, they might think this is true. And that is that a spike is always a spike. The myth is that a spike horn buck will not grow into a big buck, that it's a genetic deformity, that it's just a genetic predisposition to not have a big rack is so equivocally false. It's not true. It's a 100% a myth. It's been proven over and over and over in pretty much every state, in every biological survey and study. Spike bucks are nothing more than a buck's first set of antlers. That's all. Now,
yes,
there can be freaks of nature. There can be things that happen. There can be deer that get injuries. There can be some deer that grow spikes every year. I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm saying those are very, very, very rare. And we should not shoot spikes if they're a year and a half old.
yeah. Just because it's spiked doesn't mean it's always going to stay a spike. I get that. I guess like that myth was kind of surprising to me. I'm like, man, did people really believe that? But I kind of went back reading a little bit, and man, in like the 70s, that was legit deer management right there. If it was an Alabama 11 pointer, you pop that thing. And,
I've never heard that term, Alabama 11 pointer.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, that's how they count to 11 in Alabama.
No, I get it.
So I'm with you. Like, I think we're gonna both agree that one's kind of an easy slam dunk one. But you might not know, a spike buck is one of my like hit list bucks that I want to have here in the next few years. I'm not going to shoot one in Ohio where I can shoot a 180-inch monster. But last year in Kentucky, my buddy actually had a little spike buck that was really aggressive. And he knows that I've been dying to kill a spike buck. I've killed like all kinds of bucks, but I've never killed a spike buck. And for some reason, I just want to kill a spike buck.
I never have either.
Yeah, he had this buck on camera like every night. I was patterning this buck like it was a Boone and Crockett monster. And went down to hunt it, spent 3 days hunting it, never saw the thing. So I was outwitted last year by the old Alabama 11 point.
Now, it's crazy when I say I've never killed a spike buck, right?
Right.
Because I for those of you that are just listening to the podcast and not watching it on YouTube, you can't really see this, but right here I've got this little 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess we'll call them a modified 6 point. Right? Nothing, how many inches is this? Maybe 40, maybe.
Probably about that.
But he's a little basket rack 6 point, right? This right here is the same age as most spikes, right?
Yep.
So there is, you can just see the difference in genetics. Just this one has a few kickers. He's 3 on each side. He's just a little basket rack 6, but he's going to be the same age as a spike buck. So I've killed a pile of these, but never any spikes. So maybe I'm being hypocritical with this because, if a spike comes in, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to shoot it. But if a little basket rack 6 comes in, of course, nowadays I probably wouldn't shoot it either. But back then, I just had in my mind that I'd shoot that deer. So it is what it is. But, again, Jake and I support you guys shooting anything that makes you happy. That's legal. There's no deer shaming in here at all. I'm never going to tell you you shouldn't have shot something. That is your tag. You want to take it home, you take it home. That's not what we're here to do. I'm just saying, for me, I don't shoot spikes.
No, I'm the same. Like I will shoot a spike sometime, probably this year. I know where one's at in Kentucky again, where I might go opening a velvet spike or something crazy like that. But I've got some on camera in Ohio, but I've also got deer like these two back here behind me, which if you're not watching, there's a 187 incher and a 162 incher stacked up. It's hard to shoot spikes when those are walking around, but I've really got the itch to shoot a spike this year.
Yeah, but the thing is, like we talked about, you're not shooting that spike with the thought of I'm going to shoot him because he's never going to be better than that.
Oh gosh,
you're shooting him because you want to. So it's a totally different situation.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think a spike buck can turn into a 187 inch buck like the one behind me.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So that was my first one. What's your first one?
So my first one, we'll stick with whitetail here, and mine is the myth of the dominant buck. I don't know. I'm sure if you've read the hunting magazines, watched TV shows, you've heard that phrase "dominant buck" thrown around. A lot of big whitetail hunters like to use that term. I shot the dominant buck in my area, and I think my perception of what a dominant buck is that's the dude who breeds all the does. Like he's the one who won every fight, kicked off all the little ones, and he gets first pick of the does. Is that kind of your understanding of the dominant buck phrase?
Yeah. Basically, I think of it more as when I think dominant buck, just me. I don't disagree with you, first of all.
Yeah.
When I think
haven't made my point
buck,
yet, so I hope you don't disagree with me.
Okay. So when I think of dominant buck, I think of the bully buck.
Okay.
The one that is the boss of the food plot. And sometimes that can be a 140-inch 8-point when there's a 200-inch buck in the neighborhood. I just think deer have different temperaments and different personalities. Some like to fight, some don't. Some are younger. Even though a bigger, more mature racked buck could kick his butt all over that field, he doesn't, so that gives you the perception that smaller deer, antler wise, is the dominant buck. I've never really thought about it in terms of who gets to breed.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the whole reason they have antlers on their head is to breed does. It's an attraction thing and it's a fighting thing. But you make a good point when you say that sometimes that smaller buck might be the bully of the group. But doing a lot of research on bucks and watching them, one thing that myself and a lot of wildlife biologists have noted is that while there might be a biggest buck, there might be a bully buck, they're constantly switching roles throughout the season.
Okay.
So the dominant buck might be the dominant buck, right when the velvet comes off in September and beating everybody up. Then he might get tired, he might get complacent, and another buck might step up. They're constantly changing roles throughout the year. And that's important to know as a hunter because it changes how you hunt those deer. So one thing I always look at, we talked cellular cameras a little bit. When I'm looking at trail cam photos, I'm always looking at body posture of bucks that I want to hunt or bucks that I don't want to hunt and how that relates to, what the next picture is. Is there another buck coming in? How's that deer acting? And you can tell a lot by the deer's body position, whether he's submissive or dominant, whether he's transitioning into a more dominant role. And that helps you learn how to hunt those deer.
Yeah, I guess I didn't know that. I didn't really know that they switch. It makes total sense. And I couldn't even think of a counterpoint to it, especially because, during their breeding phase, we're trying to kill them. And sometimes we do. So yeah. obviously the dominant buck thing can switch around. The other thing, and I know we haven't really discussed this, but there's definitely a hierarchy and a dominant doe in every social group too.
Yeah, I think you get like the lead doe. I think you get the herd doe, and I think they're pretty. The big difference between bucks and does and how they establish the social structure is the does fight all year long. They're always kicking each other. They're always beating each other up. Bucks fight for about 3 months, and then they go back to the. But I mean, not unlike people. Like we can fight and then go hang out.
Buddy.
Yeah, the women can be kind of catty all year long. No offense, women, if you're listening, you know it's true too. But I think that's how you see more of an established dominant doe in a herd. Was that offensive? Did I?
No, no, yeah,
Okay.
but it's not.
Okay.
Hey, whatever.
You're married to a Puerto Rican woman. I'm positive she would agree with me.
Oh yeah, in Spanish.
Yes.
So,
So that's it. That's it for dominant bucks. It's a flashy term. It's a good marketing term, but when it really comes down to hunting, it's not something you can't say for sure what the dominant buck is in your area all the time.
right. And the whole, the whole thing about being married to a Puerto Rican chick, and I made a couple jokes, is that I get yelled at in Spanish, and that's generally, the language of passion that escapes. But you got to give it up to the Puerto Rican people, especially the Puerto Rican women, man, because they get it done. They have their 3 or 4 kids, and they're done with it. They get right on to enjoying the rest of their teenage years.
Oh man.
Lo siento, mi copa. Anyway, okay. He's rubbing his face, people. He's rubbing.
Oh man.
Just get muy caliente up in this thing, or what? I think it's funny that I made not a promise, but I told myself that when I'm broadcasting and doing stuff like this, that I'm not going to swear. And so far, we're doing good. Haven't said anything bad yet.
I'm proud of you.
So, yeah, I know. We're doing good.
First step. It saves me a lot of editing time.
So, Jake, I'm going to give you a choice here. Do we want to, for my second one, do we want to stick with whitetails, or do we want to go on to maybe a different type of animal?
Let's mix it up. Because I got some more whitetail stuff and I got non-whitetail stuff. Let's mix it up, or else this is going to turn into a whitetail podcast.
All right, perfect. So this next myth is my second one, and it's going to not really take a super long time to explain, but it does sound counterintuitive, and that's why I think it's a myth, and that is good calling kills birds. Now, this can be geese, this can be ducks, this can be turkey. The myth that good calling kills birds, and I want to tell you why it's a myth. Yes, good calling can help you kill birds, but I think good calling can also hurt you when it comes to killing birds, because there's so much more to killing a bird. Let's just go with turkeys or geese. There's so much more to calling that or to killing the animal than just being good on the calls. There is obviously scouting, there is terrain, and there is sight. Birds are very, very visual. And I personally feel that it's easier to kill a bird when you fool their eyes versus fooling their ears. And this can be done in turkey hunting, obviously with decoys, right? And if you're into reaping and you can do that in your state, you never have to do a hen call at all. You don't have to do anything. Now, maybe you need to do something to get his attention, but if he can see your decoys off the roost, a lot of times all you're going to do by calling is mess it up. Okay, because and the reason I say that with good calling is because guys that are good at calling, how did they get good at calling? By practicing. And they've practiced and they've put time, and there's some talent in there, and they think because I'm a good caller, I have to call. It doesn't matter how good of a caller you are. If you're calling too much, even doing it good, it's too much. You've already got that bird on a line with you, fooled his eyes. It's easier to kill him if you just shut up. Now, my favorite way to hunt geese, right? My favorite way to hunt geese is early season September in a layout blind, either in a cut corn or a lot of times it's hayfield because they haven't cut the corn yet. But, in a hay or alfalfa field, I absolutely love it. It's all brushed in. The geese are coming in. and all I do is honk, just regular bark, bark, bark. I don't do any runs. I don't do any cackles, nothing. I let the decoys do their job, and then I flag. Okay, movement when you're trying to kill birds is awesome. That's why reaping turkeys work so good, and flagging geese is awesome. And it's literally, it's like, it looks like a golf club. It's got wings on it, and you just lift it up and lift it down, lift it up and lift it down. Couple honks. Once them birds turn and they're looking at me, I will not make another noise. Meanwhile, some of my buddies, they'll all be like, just playing a symphony of crap. You don't need it. Put the calls down, get your gun ready, get your finger on the safety, and wait for me to tell you to shoot the damn things in the face. Okay.
You were doing so good on the swearing thing. Now I have to go edit it.
Yeah, damn.
Now I have to edit it twice.
Sorry. So, all right, my bad. But for those of you on the podcast, you get the full version. Okay, but so, yeah, so good calling. No, it's great that you're a good caller, okay? But your call, being a good caller, is not necessary to kill birds, and sometimes it can hurt you when it comes to killing birds. And I'll let you talk in just a second, but I'll never forget this hunt. I'm sitting there, and I've got, it's a turkey hunt on the edge of a field. I'm in the woods, and there is another hunter behind me that will not stop chirping on a box call. You know, and I didn't really have any birds around me, so I wasn't like super annoyed. And he was the next property over, but just and it's just one of those box calls that's out of tune. You can tell it like needed chalk. He was a bad caller.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, and then, you know, as the day goes on, he's still like literally like every solid 3.5 minutes, he's given a run on this box call. And I'm like, just drop it, man. And we hadn't heard many gobbles that morning. So he starts walking towards me, and I turn my head slowly, look around, and didn't really see him, but I could hear him, you know, and he's basically trying to get a shot gobble at this point, walking the property line. And then finally, I mean, he just sounds so bad, right? Finally, he steps out of the woods, and it's a real hen.
I can relate to that.
All morning, it was the worst sounding turkey I've ever heard in my life, and it was a turkey. So don't tell me that you have to sound like the guys on TV to kill a bird when a real turkey sounds that bad.
Yeah.
So good calling kills birds is a total myth.
No, I agree, and thank God it's a myth, because I think I'm a terrible turkey caller. I'm a pretty darn good turkey hunter, and I usually tag out every year, but man, I feel like I suck at calling. I hear the TV guys, or I've been to a couple turkey calling competitions. No, I mean, it's incredible what some guys can do, but thankfully that doesn't always translate in the woods.
Yeah, because entertaining turkey calling is not the same as hunting turkey calling.
That's right. Now, I did like what you said. I'm gonna throw a little survival at you here. I did like what you said about, you know, birds are visual, and visual things are usually what kill birds. There's a bird trap. Are you familiar with the Ojibwa bird trap?
Oh yeah. I've never really made one, but you know, through like studying and looking at techniques and stuff, I've come across it before.
So I was on a moose hunt in Canada a few years back, and ended up in like First Nation Indian territory, like real First Nation Indians. And it's actually the Ojibwa region is where I was at, and got to talking to them about some primitive skills, and learned firsthand from them how they make the Ojibwa bird trap. And I've brought that back and played with it a lot. And the thing that I've found that makes that trap most successful, I guess before I get to that, I should explain it.
You got to explain it a little bit.
Yeah. So basically what an Ojibwa bird trap is you've got a post coming up out of the ground. There's a hole drilled through it where a perch stick goes in. So maybe a 6 or 8 inch long stick, real thin little twig. You drill a hole through it, and it just holds that perch stick. Kind of like half of the letter T is basically what it looks like. And it's something that a songbird would land on before they go down to the ground. So songbird will come in, land on that stick, and kind of scout the ground before it lands, make sure it's safe where it goes and eats a seed or a worm or whatever it sees. So then what you do is you tie a snare or a noose around the perch where the bird's feet land, and a string goes through the perch hole, And the idea is the weight of the bird will knock down the perch stick. It'll trigger the noose, and you have some kind of counterweight on the other end of the line, and it'll pinch that bird up against the hole of the post stick. Really kind of difficult to explain, but definitely Google Ojibwa bird trap, or I'll throw a picture of one up here or something. But learning that firsthand was super, super cool and really interesting to actually watch them craft it and then bring it back home and experiment with it. And the number one thing I do to be successful with that trap is to carve a decoy. I'll carve out a piece of punk wood, like a red piece of punk wood, carve it out to a bird shape, then dabble some charcoal on it to kind of make it look black, and put that on the ground. And it ups the success rate of that trap. I mean, 10 times or more, because the birds will see that bird on the ground, they'll land on the perch stick to check it out before they go down, and that's all you need them to do. So visual with birds is good for hunting and trapping both.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it makes total sense. The way I've always seen it used before is, with seed or whatnot, and just,
Yep.
Put baiting,
Yep.
per se. But no, yeah. And the good thing about that trap is that's one of those traps where you can set a lot of them necessarily around that decoy. You could, like in a half moon, type situation. And just because you catch one doesn't mean the next one over is not going to be effective, because they're all keying on that same visual or that same bait pile. I've seen like a bunch of them, not a bunch, like 3 or 4 set in like a star pattern before.
Yeah, you definitely can. It's a very difficult trap. If you compare it to like a figure 4 or any of the other deadfall traps, I would say the Ojibwa bird trap to make it successfully is significantly harder, because the amount of skill and practice it takes to get that weight balance right on that limb. If you've got the time to do it, you can definitely set a few of them up.
Perfect. Okay. Well, so my number 1 and number 2 are over. What's your number 2?
So my number 2, we're going to go out west. Western hunting is something I'm very passionate about. It's, me being from the East, it was something as a kid, like I always wanted to do. And I was always told how expensive it was and how difficult it was, and how Western hunting, it's a rich man's game. And that is my number 2 myth, is that Western hunting is for the rich. I teach a seminar every year. It's called the Western Hunting Boot Camp. If you follow us on Facebook or Instagram, you'll see all the details about it. It's totally free. What I do is just kind of explain the ins and outs of Western hunting to first timers. This isn't to teach you how to go kill a 350-inch bull elk. This is to teach you how to get a tag and do some basic hunting out west to get your feet wet, because it's really addictive. But my whole goal is to show that anybody can do it. You don't need to be rich. It's easy to do. You can do it for, if you're in Ohio, kill a mule deer, antelope, couple antelope does for $1,000, if you're camping on public ground. So Western hunting is for the rich is a total myth, in my opinion. Although you can drop some serious cash out there if you want to.
So when you say Western hunting, where do you draw that line of where you say, okay, is it a geographical line for you, or is it a species line?
I think for me, it's a species line.
Okay.
For Eastern guy, we talk about whitetail and black bear, kind of the 2 things we have to hunt out here. So if you want to hunt elk, mule deer, antelope, moose, caribou, all that kind of stuff, you start migrating west. And some of that's more expensive than others, but the mule deer, antelope, elk, you can do relatively inexpensively if you put a lot of planning time into it, a lot of forethought, and you're willing to just go out, put boots on the ground and try it.
Yeah. So guys, having been to a Western hunting boot camp that Jake has taught, I can tell you, obviously I vouch for it because I'm, we're friends, but even if I didn't know you, I 100% vouch for it. I learned so much in the hours of that class, and it's not just what you learn in Jake's class. It's also, you're a good teacher, but you're a good motivator. And what I mean by motivating, you kind of break it down and you say, yes, you can do this. I think the other thing that comes with it being expensive is a lot of guys think that, it's going to be too hard on them, or it's too much, or I can't hike up and down an entire mountain. And I think some of that is not every hunt is a Remy Warren hunt. You know, there's
Yeah.
definitely hunts for every type of hunter out west.
Yeah, I mean, man, antelope hunting and we hunt around Casey, Wyoming. It's some of the most relaxing, laid back, easygoing hunting that there is to do out there. But it's probably one of my favorite hunts that I get to do every year because it's so easy and it's just fun. You drive around the truck and hang out with your buddies and talk and get to stalk a bunch of animals and goof it up. But you can make a Western hunt. The cool thing about hunting out west is there is all that different terrain. If you want to plan a mountain hunt, you can plan a mountain hunt. If you want to plan a hunt down in the prairie, you can do that. It's as simple as picking what animal you want to hunt, start looking up draw odds, or message me and ask me maybe a little general pointers. But, I think another thing is a lot of guys think you have to go guided out west.
Yeah, definitely.
And I'm all about guide hunting, man. Like, I think guides are terrific, but I think if financially you can't afford a guide, it shouldn't stop you from trying to hunt out west. You can still go do it DIY. At our boot camp, I invite everybody to my antelope camp, which is on public land. It's not guided, anything like that, but I invite everybody out. They drive around with me for a day, and I kind of show them the unit, and then they're on their own. And this year, with who drew tags, we'll surpass 90 people that have come with me on this hunt. And up to now, no one has ever left without filling a tag. We've gone 100% on mule deer in 6 years, and I think we're like 95% on antelope. A couple guys kept missing, and I don't think they're listening, so it's okay to say it. But they're the only ones sandbagging us on antelope. But no, it's a fun hunt, and then there's a lot of opportunity out there, and it doesn't cost an arm and a leg.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. But full disclosure, guys, I haven't done this yet.
Yeah.
But I will have 3 points going into Wyoming next year, so I'll definitely be going then. But I am super excited. My only trips out west, Jake, have been to like Disney, so or Vegas.
Vegas, yeah.
But next June, I'm going to Alaska next June, so that'll be awesome.
That's awesome.
Well, I guess Hawaii's west, and I did do hunting and fishing and stuff in Hawaii, so that counts, right?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, but
That's pretty
totally
cool.
different. That's another episode, though. We'll talk about Hawaii adventures because there's definitely you can have some fun as a redneck out there on the islands. But
absolutely.
Okay, does that about cover up Western hunting? Okay, so real quick though, you said is not expensive. You did mention the $1,000 thing, and for some people that may seem expensive, but if someone wants to spend $1,000, okay, and let's not include travel costs because we don't know where people are coming from, right? But let's say if they have $1,000 to spend, do you think they can pull off okay, I know they can. So what, for $1,000, what do you feel like, what and where can they pull off a DIY type hunt?
Wyoming's where it's at for DIY. Yeah. For $1,000, I mean, a good start's if you're gonna have $1,000, you're in really good shape actually, because you can get a mule deer buck tag, an antelope buck tag, and 2 antelope doe tags. And that's a lot. It sounds like a lot of tags going out there with 4 tags, but 3 or 4
target rich environment.
It's nothing to see 500 to 1,000 animals a day out there. I mean, it's really cool, and this is a pretty easy tag to draw. Anymore, it takes a point to draw usually, but yeah, for $1,000, I mean, I think the tag total comes up to like $864, $900, somewhere in there. It changed a little bit this year, but under $1,000, I mean, 4 animals, that's a
fantastic.
That's a bucket list hunt for a lot of people. But I do not buy anybody who tells me they don't have $1,000 to go hunting. When I started, and I know that might kind of irk people, but when I did my first Western hunt, man, I was making a little over $10 an hour, and I was scrapping metal off the side of the road. I was scrapping tin cans because I went on a hunt with somebody, and I told him, he's asking me what I wanted to do. I said, man, I really want to go hunt antelope. I really want to go hunt mule deer. And he goes, well, you must not really want to do it because I don't see you trying. And it kind of ticked me off a little bit that he'd accused me of that, but it was true. It's no different than saying you want to lose weight. Yeah, I want to lose a little bit of weight, but if I'm still drinking pop and eating snacks and chips and all this stuff, I guess I don't really want to. It's no different. If you're really motivated and you want to go hunt out west, you can drive around along the side of the highway, pick up scrap metal and tin cans, and within a year, you'll save up what you need for tags. And I know you can, because that's exactly how I paid for my first trip to Wyoming, was with scrap metal off the side of the road.
So do you guys remember when I said he's kind of motivating? that that he starts talking and you start feeling like, oh, I can do this. That right there was a perfect example of the style and the attitude of what Jake brings to these Western boot camp seminars. I'm screwing up the name. I super apologize. But definitely, if you want to learn more about stuff like that, or be informed, you subscribe to the show. We'll talk about that. We'll give people plenty of notice when stuff like that happens. But also make sure you go over to our Facebook page and join or like the Facebook page. Also, we do have a Survive the Hunt group. All of these stuff will all be published there and announced there. And while we'd like to take everybody, we'd also like to be in the position where it's popular enough that we can. So definitely check that out. And again, as in the past, we haven't really charged for that.
I've never charged a dime for that seminar or for the camp. My gas money, chauffeur and people around out there, everything's totally free. Part of that's because I can't charge money in Wyoming, because I'm not a licensed guide in Wyoming, so I can't say it's guided or charge money. But I don't really want to. I just want people to come out, have a good time, and see what it's all about, and get on it. And so far, it's been pretty fun out there.
Right. So moving on to our third one here, I'll go first with this. And this kind of, comes into play again with whitetail hunting, is where I focus on this. However, talking about Western hunting, this does come into play in basically the title of the myth, and then I'll explain it. The title of the myth is fast bows are better. And what I mean by that is fast bows are better on ducking deer. And so let's get here's another myth. The myth is that deer duck. Okay, guys, in case you don't know this, they're not ducking your arrow. What they're doing is they don't know that your arrow's flying towards them. They're not a squirrel doing the Matrix. Squirrels are different, but deer are not ducking your arrow. What they are doing is they are bending down to preload the jump that's in their legs. And as they bend down, that's what causes you to shoot over their back or hit them high. They are not actively trying to get out of the way of your arrow.
Right.
Now, there's been, and the reason I say fast bows are better, because you might think, well, if my arrow is getting there faster, they've had less time to duck, which kind of makes sense, but I'm going to tell you why it doesn't. Okay. And the reason they're ducking is because of sound. Okay. They they might already be jumpy, right? They may have maybe seen you, maybe they got a little bit of your smell, but they're already a little bit on edge, because an at ease and rested deer generally is not going to duck or jump the string, right? So it's all based on sound. Fast bows are noisy. And the reason they're noisy is because to have a fast arrow, okay, is generally going to be a light arrow. A heavy arrow is going to be slower, and it quiets the bow down tremendously, because there's all this, you draw a bow back, there's all this pent up energy in the limbs, right? And all that energy has to be transferred into something. And with a light arrow, that light arrow can only take so much energy. The rest of that energy is going to come out as vibration, which creates sound, right? So, which means a light arrow, a fast arrow is going to be louder, which means that deer is going to have more retort to duck it. With a quiet bow, with a quieter arrow, you could use the same bow. You can use the same bow, just heavy, make a heavier arrow. You're going to have less ducking. Okay. Remember I said that a fast bow the arrow will get there faster and negate some of the ducking. It's not true. They've done studies on deer in super slow motion. Your arrow, if you're aiming at the heart of a deer, okay, your arrow, in order to make no difference whatsoever and still produce a killing shot, would have to be traveling at 800 feet per second in order to take the deer's reaction out of the equation. In order for you to say, I can kill this thing. I don't care if it tries to duck. It doesn't matter. That's why they don't duck bullets, people, right? Because they're traveling 2,500 feet per second, right? So you're not going to beat a deer with better equipment in regards to speed. You want to beat them in regards to sound. A slower arrow is more quiet, which will lead to less ducking. The other thing is, real quick, it also depends how far away that deer is, okay? Because if the deer generally is, I'd like to say 16 yards and in, right? The ducking is not going to be as pronounced for a few reasons. The sound waves haven't spread out, okay, to that certain extent. So the arrow gets there about relatively close to the same time as, obviously your arrow's not going the speed of sound, but the way things travel, your arrow gets there soon enough to negate some of that ducking, right? So speed doesn't really come into play when you're taking a 15-yard shot.
Right.
Now, 16 yards to 30 yards, where most of our deer kills happen with archery equipment, that's where this sound makes a huge difference, because as the sound comes out, it spreads out. It's a bigger wave, blah, 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 science, right? But at 30 yards and up, then speed can help you, maybe a little bit by a flatter trajectory, and that deer's farther away, so the sound of the bow isn't as startling to them. So up close, it's not as big of a deal, but in far away, it's not as big of a deal. But in our wheelhouse of 16 to 30 yards, that is where a fast bow is not necessarily better.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add to that. I think you kind of nailed it there. I mean, I shoot, my compound bow is in the 260 range. I think is what I'm shooting out of that. My Raven's cranking over 400 feet per second. And still, going back watching the video this year, I shot this 162 that's behind me. I shot it at 42 yards this year with that Raven. And that deer dropped a lot, like enough that I was worried that I'd missed him. He dropped so much, but luckily it still got there and zipped through him. But yeah, man, it's impressive how fast those animals can move when they're preloaded, when they're nervous, or maybe it's not even they're nervous at you, but they're nervous at other deer that are around. If they're, go back to the whole dominant buck thing, maybe it's a buck's got their butt kicked and there's another deer around, they'll be on edge just because there's other deer, even if you're doing everything right.
Yeah, or there's a bear in the area, there's a coyote just ran through. I mean, it could be anything that puts them on edge. It could just be that deer's particular personality as well. Yeah. Again, we were talking earlier about the lead doe, and we all got that one doe that comes in, looks up at the tree, every tree that she walks by, and starts snorting for no reason. It's just, they all do have different personalities. But again, with the crossbow, I think that speed probably helped you at 42 yards. But also, I feel like the reason that the deer heard you is because the crossbow is louder than the compound.
That thing's it sounds like a 22 going off. I mean, it's a loud bow. Yeah.
Right. So like with the compound, I said 16 to 30 it is our wheelhouse area where speed doesn't affect, right? So I think you just have to extend that out to, and that's why I see, like, you see, guys taking like 45-yard pokes with compound. Yeah. And that sometimes that 45-yard shot, if the deer's calm and there's no wind and all those situations are perfect, is an easier shot than maybe a 30-yard or a 27-yard, because the deer doesn't hear the bow go off, they're not as close to you, the chance of them smelling you, seeing you, blah blah blah. Yeah. So and then for Western hunters, you don't usually have a super close shot.
No, it's in my experience, it's been really rare to have anything close.
Yeah, so especially if you're bow hunting out west, and even like, especially mule deer, you might be shooting them when they're bedded, right? So when they're bedded, you definitely don't have to worry about them dropping. So
right,
it's just a different game. But that was my third one. I just, everyone talks about, well, how fast is it? How fast is it? Speed. We'll, on another show, we can go into the bull crap of how they measure speed for arrows, because it's totally doesn't make sense. It makes sense how they do it, right? But it's not a big deal. For example, my Matthew's Tree X is like a IBO speed of like what, I don't even know anymore, 329, 330. With my arrow, it shoots 251, right?
Yeah.
And that's a real hunting arrow. I'm a little bit heavier than some guys, but
Right.
still, like, that's a 70 feet per second swing. So
Yeah, it's weird how they measure it.
yeah, don't get all caught up on how fast this bow is. Get caught up on how quiet it is, and if you're in the shop shooting it, lack of vibration equals noise and sound in the field. So every bow kind of sounds loud indoors, but just try to feel that vibration, and that's what's actually going to give you your sound.
I like it. It's good. It's
All
good.
right, you're up. Number 3. What's your last one?
All right. So I had one in here, and I'm going to tell you what it is, but we're not going to talk about it because it would take way too long. And I know we're getting up against the end of the show here. But what I had was the moon dictates the rut. But I think we can go an entire episode on the moon and rut hunting and how to pattern deer. So we're going to save that because I know we don't have time. So I'm going to let you pick this one. All right. We're going to talk about how high you hunt or hunting over bait.
Ooh, let's go with the bait thing. Are we talking deer, hogs, bear? What are we talking?
We'll just say with deer. We'll say with deer. Although the same thing kind of applies to everything else as well. So
okay, well, I think we've talked a lot about deer this episode, so let's go ahead and continue down that road so that the big deer hunters get the most out of this episode.
Yeah, they'll be the most grumpy at us.
Oh well.
Oh well. Anyway, so the myth is that hunting over bait guarantees you're going to kill your deer, which is kind of I'm in Ohio. Baiting's totally legal up here.
On private land only, right?
Yeah, on private land only. I don't know of any state where baiting for deer is legal on public land. There might be.
Well, ours depending on who you are.
Well, yeah, depending on who. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Depending on who you are, and only a certain amount.
Right. Until they made baiting illegal, you could bait anywhere, even public land. So anyway.
Right. So you guys are so weird with your deer laws up there, but anyway.
Yeah.
No. So the myth is, and I think the common perception is, if you're hunting over bait, you're cheating because you're guaranteeing that you're going to kill a deer. You're guaranteeing that buck's going to come in all the time. And I think that's the way that baiting is looked at by a lot of people. I know in Ohio, it's certainly the way that the purists, the real big whitetail guys, they just scoff at hunting over bait because they think it's cheating. They think it makes it just way too easy.
I've never killed a big deer off of bait. I very rarely have big deer come to bait during season while the sun is up. I don't think it helps. I don't think it helps you kill big bucks at all. Other than it does bring all the does in, and if one of them is in heat, he's going to be dogging her.
Yep. This real big buck behind me, this 187, he was killed. He's the only buck I've ever killed anywhere near bait, and I was hunting him on a trail going to bait, and I was doing that same thing, baiting those does in, keeping the does in the area. But in my area, if you're not hunting over bait, you don't have any deer because everybody's hunting over bait. So you've got to have some kind of food source, a food plot, some kind of bait. I mean, I would even argue that a food plot's probably bait. So you've got to have something holding those deer in that's going to keep them there in this area. What I will say, kind of going back to your point about deer jumping the string, if you're hunting deer over bait, 100% of the time that deer's on alert, because at some point in their life they've associated bait with people. They've seen one of their buddies get shot. Maybe they've been shot at or shot and wounded. But deer always associate unnatural corn piles laying in the woods with people. They understand it, but they take that risk of it's probably pretty safe. They're trusting their nose, but they're always way more on edge. And if you're shooting at deer on a bait pile, they're going to jump the string a whole lot more often than a deer that's just walking down the trail under normal circumstances.
Yeah, another reason they're so jumpy is because when they're chewing, they lose their sense of hearing. I mean, they don't lose it altogether, but just think about you. if you're chewing potato chips or you're chewing something crunchy, you know, even carrots, you know, obviously people bait with carrots, or if I mean, imagine chewing the noise that would come out of your mouth if you were chewing raw corn, right? That crunch in your mouth, you can hear that in your ears, and it basically, it takes away one of their defense systems. A lot of people don't think about that. And it's actually, when I did hunt a lot of bait, and when Uncle taught me to hunt bait, he would always say, wait till you can hear them crunching to draw, because they can't hear you. It was just one of those things that that, you know, it takes one of their defense systems away, so it's going to make them extra jumpy.
That's a good point. Deer are really loud eaters. If
Really loud.
You've hunted over bait, I'm sure you've heard deer crunching corn. But actually, the first buck I ever killed with a bow, the only reason I saw that deer is because he was crunching acorns, and I could hear the acorns popping behind me, and I happened to turn and see him crunching them. And that led into a long spot and stalk hunt that ended up getting him killed. But
did you know that there's actually a stupid deer call that is supposed to mimic the sound of acorns being eaten?
Yeah, I do.
Who buys that crap? Although if they want to sponsor us, no, I'm kidding. We don't take sponsors.
No.
I'm just saying, like really, really.
It's
really.
An interesting thought. Like I get it. Like, okay, but no, I don't see that one being effective.
Yeah. Okay, so we are running up on an hour here, but because you mentioned bait, I did want to tell you one of the ways that I think is more effective to hunt bait that a lot of people don't. And guys, I hunted bait for, I don't know, 20 years probably, is I call it my donut theory. Okay. And the idea is, if you look at a donut, you got the hole in the middle, and then the rim around it. Well, if the hole of the donut is where the bait is, I've always thought that the best hunting for you is going to be somewhere on the outer edge of the donut. Okay, depending on wind direction, and because those deer will stage before they come in to eat at the bait, and when they're staging, they're a lot more relaxed. So if you can figure out where along the outer ridge of the donut is, where they're hanging out before they actually go in and eat, you have a better shot. And a lot of times your bigger deer will stay out on there. They send the young ones in first to be the cannon fodder to make sure it's safe, right? Yeah. So those young ones will go in, those bigger ones will stay out on the outer edge of the donut. Also, your bucks are going to be scent checking that bait. And the way they do that is, again, the downwind side, and they're going to stay on that outer edge. So sitting, with a 12-yard shot to the bait, if you want to kill young does and spike bucks and stuff like that, go ahead, sit there. Yeah. But if you're going to use bait to your best advantage, you should be on the outer edge of the donut. The other thing where this works good for is if it's someone else's bait pile.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Let them spend the money. Let them put the bait out. Maybe there's a property line, where they can't come onto your property, but they're baiting their property. Sit on the outer edge of that donut on your property. Use their bait as an attractant, and it's just a really good way to hunt bait without sitting over top of it on jumpy deer.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like it a lot. I know we're up against it, but I'm going to throw in a bait and tip here because it's summertime right now. This is the time where I'll inventory bucks on trail camera. So I'm going to give you guys my best tip for getting bucks on trail camera right now. So here's what
this is good because I don't even know this. Definitely.
Yeah. So here's what I do. So I'm applying some African lion hunting skills to hunting whitetail here in Ohio. So what I do, I don't usually hunt bait throughout the year, but I do use it this time of the year. I love Big Tine. I've got the Big Tine Nitro out right now, and that gets me an idea.
Is that the cherry one?
Yeah.
Or no, that's 30-06 or something like that, right?
Well, it used to be called 30-06, and now it's called Nitro. It's a little bit different blend. I think somebody else owned the 30-06, and then they took their patent back or whatever. I don't know.
Whatever. Okay, so Big Tine deer feed.
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll put 100 pounds of corn down on the ground, and then I'll put a 50-pound bag of Big Tine on top of it, and then it's a big pile. But I'll put my camera. I want it to last a couple of weeks, so we've got a lot of deer. So then what I'll do is I'll take some sugar, or Big Tine actually makes a powder that you're supposed to sprinkle on the corn. I forget what it's called, some magic dust or something. But I'll take that powder, I'll take that sugar, and I'll put it in a huge circle all around the bait pile on the trails coming into it, where the deer, it's just going to soak into the dirt. The deer are never going to eat it. They're going to smell it, but they're not going to be able to do anything with it. But it's going to get caked on their feet. And what happens, that smells, those flavors, all that stuff gets stuck on their feet, gets stuck in those interdigital glands, gets stuck up in the fur. And as the deer come visit the bait pile and then they leave a scent trail for a long way. I mean, hundreds of yards, they'll leave that really sweet smelling scent trail. And all the other deer, when they cross paths, are going to smell that, and they can backtrack it right back to your bait pile. So it's a way of making your bait pile where they can smell it, maybe close, extend it out hundreds and hundreds of yards from the bait pile. This is how your really good bear hunting guides do it. They'll pour molasses out on the ground. It gets stuck on the pad of the bare feet. In Africa, we did it. We would take the guts of a bait animal and spread it all around an area, and the jackals and the hyenas would get it on their feet and track it all over until a lion smelled it. So it's using that deer's natural instinct to sniff the ground, maybe a half mile away from your bait pile, to get them back there. Get the bucks in front of the camera. I did this just a couple days ago in a brand new spot I've never stepped foot on. And in, I guess it's been 4 days now, I've had 13 different bucks on one bait pile. So I'm starting to get a good idea what's there.
That's great. I didn't want to interrupt you, but the whole time I was, not the whole time, but as soon as you mentioned that, I was thinking to myself, oh, just like a grease pad for bear, but doing it with deer. And then you started talking about the bear aspect of it. And that's all right. Well, we did myths and tips. There we go.
There we go. It's not the way we planned it, but it's the way it worked out. I like it.
Yeah. So guys, this is not, we specifically did not title this top 3 or top 5 myths or nothing like that. We just wanted to say these are some myths. Of course, there's a lot more out there, and we want to hear what you guys think. So anywhere you guys are watching this, whether you're watching on YouTube right now, you're listening on the podcast version, you see it on Facebook or whatnot, the best thing you can do is just leave a comment. Tell us what some myths are that you have. We'll be happy to discuss them in our next episode. Where we're super involved on all those channels and all those pages. So if you're talking directly to the Survive the Hunt, you're either talking to myself or Jacob. So
yep.
Make sure you reach out to one of us and get out there and get some trail cameras out. If you're allowed to put bait in front of them, he just told you what to do. If not, you put boots on the ground just like I did this weekend and get out there and survive the hunt.
Yeah, see you guys next week.